Hey everyone, welcome back to The Explainer. So today we're unpacking something genuinely fascinating in relationship psychology. We are going to look at the mindset behind why some people just outright refuse to chase romantic interests, and we'll break down the actual psychology driving this behavior.
Okay, let's dive right into this. You've probably noticed that some guys just never seem to chase, right? It's a super specific behavioral pattern. They aren't blowing up your phone, they're definitely not begging for your attention, and they literally never try to force a connection. Now, on the surface, you might just assume, oh, he's just not that into it. But the psychology behind this actually reveals a way deeper story. So here is our roadmap for today. We're covering 1. The psychology of not chasing. 2. Self-respect over forced affection. 3. Purpose over romantic pursuit. 4. Patience and true compatibility. And finally, number 5. Redirected, not rejected.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, The Psychology of Not Chasing, subtitled Shifting the Paradigm.
Now, what's really interesting here is the stark contrast between these two mindsets. Usually, when someone takes a step back, instead of coming on strong, people just assume they don't care. But think about it. On one hand, you have chasing, right? That's just an exhausting cycle of trying to force affection and endlessly seeking external validation. But on the flip side, you have a framework built entirely on self-respect. Psychologically speaking, people with solid self-esteem just don't crave that constant validation. They want natural appreciation. They'd way rather let things unfold organically than have to put in all this work to convince someone to choose them. For these folks, mutual interest is always going to beat out the draining game of constant pursuit.
Moving on to Section 2, Self-Respect over Forced Affection, the Reciprocity Rule. So people operating from a place of high self-respect, they just fundamentally do not believe that affection should ever be forced. To them, consistency matters way more than mixed signals. They're looking for genuine interest, and they firmly believe a strong relationship takes real effort from both sides. Actually, if they look at their interactions and realize they're always the only one reaching out, they don't double down. No way. They see that as a huge red flag, a blatant sign of imbalance. It's kind of like, it's like continuously throwing a tennis ball against a brick wall that just absorbs it instead of bouncing it back. Eventually, you're going to stop throwing the ball. So instead of chasing someone who's giving nothing back, they make a conscious, healthy choice to just step away. They demand that genuine, two-way effort.
Which brings us to Section 3, Purpose over Romantic Pursuit, the Life Pie.
So if these guys aren't spending all their mental energy chasing, where exactly is it going? Well, it is heavily diversified. We're talking work, health, hobbies, long-term ambitions. A lot of men prioritize personal growth way ahead of a romantic pursuit, and psychology backs this up, suggesting that having these deeply meaningful goals creates a massive sense of purpose. Whether they're, training for a marathon, grinding for a promotion, or trying to perfect that incredibly finicky sourdough starter they've been obsessing over, they are deeply invested in their own lives. A relationship simply becomes one slice of the pie. It is absolutely not the center of their universe.
And that gives us this really crucial takeaway. Confidence comes from progress, not attention. Because they are so deeply invested in their own life pie, their self-worth isn't dangling on whether or not they're getting romantic validation. Their confidence is rooted in real personal growth, crushing their goals and making tangible progress. And honestly, that is exactly why they feel zero need to chase anyone.
Okay, Section 4, Patience and True Compatibility, Thinking Before Acting.
This is fascinating because not everyone blurts out their feelings the absolute second they feel a spark. Here we're looking at impulse versus observation. Instead of just jumping in based purely on physical attraction, which, let's be real, often leads to rushing blindly into the absolute wrong relationship, they lean heavily into observation. They care so much more about long-term potential than the short-term gratification of a chase. They would literally rather wait, gather their data, and be sure than rush in and make a massive mistake just because they felt an impulse.
So they actually follow a pretty methodical process. First off, they take the necessary time to observe a person's character, their core values, and how they actually behave. Then, secondly, they evaluate for genuine compatibility. And third, they act carefully based on what they found. They inherently know that a lasting relationship has to be built on the rock-solid foundation of true compatibility. And, you just cannot build that foundation if you are rushing.
And now, we arrive at our main focus for today, Section 5, Redirected, Not Rejected, Mastering Emotional Detachment.
So the crucial point here, the ultimate secret to maintaining relationship peace, is psychological resilience. It's the ability to just accept someone's disinterest without taking it as a hit to your self-worth, and crucially, without trying to change their mind. Because they understand on a fundamental level that attraction cannot be forced. They just accept it when the interest is mutual. If someone isn't feeling it, they don't fight it, they don't argue, and they absolutely do not let it diminish their internal value. They actively and masterfully detach from the outcome.
The source material actually nails this mastery of emotional detachment with a great quote. Move forward with confidence rather than chase what isn't mutual. See rejection as redirection, not personal failure. Taking a step back is not a defeat, guys. It is a profound act of empowerment. They get that rejection is just a normal, everyday part of life. You're just taking your incredibly valuable energy and redirecting it away from a dead end. That lets you move forward with complete confidence instead of exhausting yourself trying to change something that is fundamentally unchangeable.
So we really need to completely reframe this behavior. What not chasing actually means is that a person values respect, they value balance, and they value genuine connection. It absolutely does not mean they're aloof or that they don't care. Actually, scratch that, it's the exact opposite. It means they care so deeply about the quality of their relationships that they hold incredibly high standards for mutual respect and healthy boundaries.
Which leaves us with one final, pretty provocative question. Will you keep chasing, or will you choose to step back and find a genuine connection? I really hope that mapping out this psychology today has inspired you to reconsider where you're investing your energy, to master your own emotional detachment, and to always remember that in life and love, you aren't being rejected, you are simply being redirected. Thanks so much for learning with me on this explainer, and I'll see you all next time.